Hey guys, Technomentary here with the video for you guys. In today's video, we're going to be comparing the iPhone XS Max with the iPhone 10 here. In this video, we're going to do a lot of comparison between the hardware, the software, and the overall performance of these phones running iOS 14 in 2021. Break everything down for you guys, whether you guys are looking to buy either of the phones or upgrading from one to another, or even upgrading for another iOS devices. Everything you need to know, it's going to be in this video for you guys. But before we go ahead and get started, if you guys are new to our channel, we do a lot of tech news, reviews, and giveaways, so make sure to hit that subscribe button. Also, if you guys are in the market for newer phones or are looking to upgrade for a discounted phone, make sure you guys check out the link in the description section. So let's go ahead and get started with today's review of the phones. So one thing you'll notice about these two phones is that they're only a year difference apart. The iPhone 10 was released kind of a big breakthrough for Apple when it was released. It was the 10th year for Apple, 10-year anniversary, and they released the X or the 10, depending on how you pronounce it. It was released in November of 2017, where Apple finally introduced the all-screen display to the phone. The Max here, on the other hand, was released in September of 2018, so 1 year later. And the interesting thing about the XS Max is that it's the only Max edition out there of the X lineup. The 10 does not have a Max, so the regular 10 itself is just by itself. There's also the R, which doesn't have the Max edition as well. The Max is what used to be the Plus, the bigger size on the iPhone 6, 7, and 8. Apple moved away from that terminology and decided to call it a Max instead of the Plus. So as you can see, between these two phones, of course, it's not apples to apples comparison, and don't mind the pun there, but this is going to be a comparison to look everything on these two phones. So let's go ahead and take a look at the back here. That's important to look at the back, because you'll see the build of these phones are pretty much identical. Both of them are all glass in front and back, hence why you won't notice a difference. Of course, the Max has bigger body, that's pretty obvious. Both of them do have that dual 12 megapixel camera, that Apple logo, and the iPhone written on the print back here. Both of them actually have similar sort of body build to it. Both of them have surgical grade stainless steel body to it, that reflective bezel, so not much to compare there. And if we talk about the actual difference in terms of the size of these phones and the weight of these phones, well, that's where probably the breakdown of these two phones come in terms of their size. So if you look at both of these phones, you'll notice the iPhone Max has a 7.34 or 208 grams weight to it, compared to the X, which has around 6.14 or 174 grams to it, almost 30 grams lighter versus the Max here, as you see, and almost 2 ounce heavier on it. Does that really feel much? Well, sort of. The Max does feel sort of heavier, but not too much that it's a noticeable difference. And if we talk about the actual size difference on it, the Max has a 6.2 inch height versus the X, which has a 5.65, and the width of the Max here is a 3.05 versus the X, which is 2.79. Of course, both of them have the 0.3 depth to it. And let's go ahead and talk about the display of these two phones, which is probably a lot in terms of the difference between these two displays. So both of the phones does have sort of the same OLED technology built on these display, and we talk about it is that size difference in display. You have that 6.5 diagonal all display OLED. Both of them are Super Retina LED, compared to that 5.8 display, so almost 0.5 diagonal real estate display that you get out of the Max version compared to the X. The other noticeable difference is that the resolution of these phones. The Max has a better resolution. It's 2688 by 1242 pixel resolution, compared to the X, which is 2436 by 1125 resolution, thanks to its bigger display, more LED to it, more the resolution. Besides that, your contrast ratio, 1,000,000 to 1, are same between both of the devices. They also have True Tone, wide color display. They also have that 3D touch to both of them, and also does have that 625 bright nit onto these phones. And where does the difference between these two phones come in? Well, one aspect comes around is sort of the actual build to the storage on these two phones are slightly different. The X only has two configuration and also two colors as well compared to the Max. The iPhone X, as you can see here, we have the space gray edition, and it also has the silver edition, silver white edition to it, and it's able to you're able to buy the 10 in 64 and 256 gig compared to the iPhone Max here, which you're able to go to from 64 gig, 256, and also maxed out 512 gig of storage. Of course, the Max here does have a wide range of color compared to the X. You also have the gold, which it is not gold Max, which is there is no gold for your regular 10 here on the phones. And let's talk about the other aspect in hardware is the chip comparison between these two phones. Because they're 1 year apart, the iPhone X has the A11 Bionic chip, and a generation later Apple introduced A12 chip to it. And does that really make a difference? Well, when you do speed tests and such and heavy gaming on graphic intensive game, that might be where you notice slight difference between these. The other aspect we want to talk about, really important, is the battery life between these two phones. What kind of battery life can you expect out of these two phones? Well, there's a couple things. First, before we talk about the battery, is that with any bigger iPhones, you have bigger battery, mAh battery to its iPhone. Max does have a bigger battery, and that gives a slight advantage over the regular 10, is that if we talk about video playback, which is a good indicator of the actual battery, is that the Max does give you 15 hours of video playback compared to the regular 10, which gives you around 13 hours of video playback. So battery, the Max of course wins just because of the bigger phone. And last thing we're going to talk about, the physical component of these two phones, is the actual IPA rating on these two phones. The Max does have around IPA 68 compared to IPA 67 on the 10 here, which gives it 1 meter more. So the Max, you're able to take it underwater about 2 meters versus 1 meter on the regular 10 for 30 minutes. Well, does that really matter? It might not really matter even with any waterproof phone. If the phone has a crack on the back glass, which these can easily crack, or the front glass, or if the screen was replaced or something is broken, most likely water can get it and damage either of the phones. And let's talk about the last piece of hardware, which we saw here. Both of them have similar build to the camera. And if we talk about the actual build to the camera, let's open up a lot of the similarities in terms of the camera between these two phones. Of course, they have the same amount of optical zoom thanks to that telephoto second lens. The same with portrait mode. Both of them phones does have pretty much the same photo mode to it, except the Max has one slight better feature, is that you're able to do high key light mono, which is not available on the 10. That's the only noticeable difference between it. But when it comes down to video recording, as you see, both of the phones can record from your typical 720 HD all the way to 4K. Phenomenal phone for recording. Apple does not shy away when it comes to its camera. It's always done that phenomenal job to both of these phones around that, and that's why a lot of the different similarities between the one aspect that's different between these two phones is that the Max does have portrait mode with depth control, which isn't available on the regular 10 here that we have. And the other aspect to the Max is that it has a smart HDR for photos, and the regular 10 just has an auto HDR for photos. Does that really, that's to a naked eye, you might not really even care about that, but that's the technical difference between these two phones. And let's talk about the software aspect of these two phones, which is important. As you saw, both of these phones are actually upgraded to iOS 14, and they're able to get the iOS 14 update. No issues there, and tons of features coming out of iOS 14. And if you guys haven't seen our video on the review of iOS 14 and all the features that you need to know and everything you need to know to upgrade to iOS 14, make sure you guys check that out. But essentially, when it comes to iOS update to 14, both of the phones are able to do pretty much the same in terms of the apps that you use, whether it be social media, your entertainment, your gaming. Of course, because the Max does have a bigger display when it comes to things like Netflix or even gaming, you're going to have a little bit more of that fun experience because you have sort of that bigger body to it, and that gives you more real estate on the display. Nonetheless, the 10 does still have that all body display and allows you to almost pretty much do the same thing. But if you're a person that likes the bigger screen for that sort of thing, you might be looking at the Max just because of that 6.5 compared to the 5.8 display that we have. And let's bring on to the next point about iOS update, which is important on these devices because at certain point these will stop getting the iOS update. And when is that exactly? Well, a couple things here. Because the iPhone X was released in 2017, we expect it to get possibly another 2 to 3 or up 2 years of update or so versus the Max, which might get 3 more years or so of the major update. It could be longer depending on how Apple deems the hardware, if it's able to support its future updates to it. So that's one thing to note. So iOS update wise, because the Max was released a year after, will outlast the X for sure. So if you're looking to compare or for buying a phone that you want to last longer, you might be looking at the Max or the regular 10s, which was released as well. So in terms of these two phones in 2021, if you're looking at the price point, you're probably going to be looking at the Max being a little bit more expensive still. You could probably get both of these phones for sure, like around $300 to $400 depending on where you get it. So that's why it's important you guys check out the link in the description we have included. So our final conclusion comes to whether you buying the Max or the X. Well, depending on your budget, if you're looking for a phone with a bigger screen in size, the Max wins it, just a slight advantage over the X, over the 10 for the battery life and that better chip and 1 more year more than the 10 here. That's why the Max wins this one in terms of comparison. But if you're looking for more budget friendly but still looking at that OLED and looking to spend maybe $100 to $150 less even on a pre-owned device, you might look at the 10, which is still a great device in 2021. I like, for someone with smaller hands it's easier, but someone with bigger hands might find that the Max is comfortable. So that's another aspect you want to consider. So hopefully this video is helpful for anyone looking to compare these two devices. We want to hear from you guys, whether you guys are using one phone or the other one. Which one are you using? How's your experience been on either of the devices? Leave a comment in the comment section. Also, if this video is helpful for you guys deciding to look to buying a phone, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button as well. Thanks for watching, guys. See you guys next time.